First question, did either of you watch the movie?
Yes.
Ange watched it. Adam's quiet.
I can tell by Adam's face he hasn't watched
Which
it.
means he didn't watch it. Oh, he did. He watched it.
I did watch it. Of course I did.
Unreal. Welcome to episode 3 of Keeping on Track. I'm Bradley Williams, and joining me today is my usual partner in crime, Adam Heath. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning.
And today we are joined by special guest Angela Andrews, who is Angela. What's the official title? Is business.
It's Head of Business Services.
Head of Business Services on Track International. Now, Ange, you've been on track for how long?
18 years.
18 years. You get less than that for certain crimes.
I know you would.
You've done well.
Thank you very much.
And Angela's joining us today to talk about stress, which we feel is a topic that seems to be quite prevalent at the moment, and Angela comes into contact with this a lot with kind of 2 or 3 different hats on. One's HR, the other are kind of in terms of products and services that we've been supplying and working on in regards to things like virtual classrooms and all sorts of things. But we'll come round to that. And the film today that we will be using as our base for this discussion is the Adam Sandler. What do we call it? Epic.
It's not an Adam Sandler movie.
It's not an Adam Sandler. It's not. Yeah, it's not Mr. Deeds, is it? It's very different. It's a thriller, and it's called Uncut Gems. You can catch it on Netflix at the moment. Obviously, as with every episode of Keeping on Track, I just want to give you a spoiler alert. We will be talking about the film in detail. So if you want to see the film fresh, we recommend watching that before you listen to the rest of this podcast. So Uncut Gems tells the story of Howard Ratner, who is a New York City jeweler, and he is possibly the most self-destructive human being on the face of the earth. He has gambling addictions. He is neck deep in debt to his brother-in-law and some loan sharks. He borrows, begs, steals from different people. He barters. He robs from Peter to give to Paul. And he has this black opal that he's ordered months and months ago that he's waiting to arrive. And he believes that this black opal is going to be his answer to all of his worries and concerns, and it's going to be a massive cash for him, a massive payday for him. And the movie is essentially about a week in the life, or a week or so in the life of Howard, and he's just the chaos that ensues in everything that he does. And it sounds quite comical. It is quite comical in places, but it is genuinely one of the most stressful films I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
Absolutely. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I didn't watch it just before I went to bed, because I don't think I'd have slept. I have to say, I'm so glad my children were not in the house. That has to be the largest amount of Fs I've ever heard in one sitting.
Well, we're going to come back to that.
Brad will tell you, Adam, I don't mind the odd F word, but my toes were absolutely curling.
This is the first film I've watched, Brad, because you sort of made a special request that I should make an effort to watch this one, and I did. I don't know why you particularly wanted me to watch this one. The other ones, I think you knew there was a chance I wasn't going to watch them. This one, what an experience! Wow. And I was just thinking, I didn't know if you were going to get straight into the movie, because sometimes we chat for a bit and then we get into the movie. I was going to remark that this 15 minutes of trying to get the audio working is as stressful as watching that movie was.
It was so stressful. It really was stressful.
Well, that's good. Adam and I are quite used to stress, as you are, I'm sure, Ange, as well.
Yeah. I quite like it.
Yeah, and it's weird because the film itself almost plays as a little bit. I think there are certain more overt connotations towards basketball and things like that. That the film itself focuses around Howard and his relationship with the game of basketball and things like that. But I think kind of from our side specifically, I look at it sometimes. I think this is what it feels like to do a big project. Sometimes you're just hanging on by your nails a lot of the time, and you've got 1,001 things to do, and everything relies on the next thing landing, and at any one point the whole thing can collapse, and you've sleepless nights, and you're trying to cajole people into doing things, and it's very much everything seems from the outside to look quite calm and collected and calculated, but I think it is quite a chaotic experience.
I'm still recovering from the film. It's an emotional experience in a way that a lot of movies are not. I think even if I've seen a kind of stressful or action-packed, engaging film, I've never felt my heart race quite as much as it did watching this. Do you know what occurred to me really early on? And I hadn't personally started to kind of compare it to the world we inhabit, but you're right. What struck me really early on is the sound design of the movie, and I can't remember. It might have been 15 or 20 minutes in before I got my first pause. It was just wall to wall sound, people talking at each other, over each other, sound effects, background music, TV shows, all kinds of stuff. And I guess on reflection, that is what some of the big projects we work on are like. There is just volume, there's just noise coming at you from all directions. And I found that a really kind of different experience watching this movie. Is kind of, my ears didn't really know where to settle. I was trying to pick up threads of all kinds of conversations and people and moments, and yeah, that is probably, that's, sometimes I think you might stretch some of your comparisons from movies to our real life experience, but that is maybe that's why the film really has struck me, because that is what life is like. And most movies don't show life. That is what life is like. There is this cacophony of noise around us that we have to kind of try and navigate.
Definitely. And you know a thing or two about it as well, right, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. So I think it's quite a British trait to kind of deal with stress and just not let it show. And I think in the film, it was a very typical kind of New Yorker sort of feel to how they talk, usually over each other all the time, and, really loud and stressed. And as Adam said, you almost kind of needed to remember to breathe while you're watching it. But yeah, I'd liken it very much to sometimes some of the challenges we face at work, and we often, launch ourselves into the challenge, but you've kind of got to keep that kind of serene outlook to the client often, that everything's going smoothly when you're actually trying to sort stuff out underneath. And I'm sure you experience that as well, probably on a shoot quite often, where you think, oh gosh, we're running really late, or something's gone wrong, or technology's not working for us. And yeah, it does happen, but as always in the movies, probably not to the extent that it happened in that film.
Kevin! Hey! How's the man in? I am. Go to the other buzzer, please. Hurry up. Right there. Go ahead.
It's not working.
God damn it. Hang on, sorry.
Open
this shit up, man. I'm sorry.
We don't got time for this. You got a game
tonight. Sometimes doesn't open the door at the gym. I'm claustrophobic. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, good. There it is. All right.
Go downstairs and wait.
You can't leave.
We're going to wait downstairs, nigga.
Hell, come on. Get a fucking half there. We'll be right.
Man.
All right.
He needs a
It's
hammer.
gonna be.
He needs a hammer. Let me get a hammer.
Honestly, it's gonna be a second.
This will work.
I'm on it. Fine. This usually works. This will work. Give me this. And get ready to buzz, okay?
Oh, my God.
Sorry, buzz. Are you kidding me? Buzz! And hit it from the side.
Flawless is here.
Get rid of this. I'm trying to get. Tell him goodbye.
Flawless is here.
Goodbye to fucking Flawless. Roman! Come out here.
One of the things that's interesting to me though is to solve any individual crisis that Adam Sandler's character is facing. He takes a punt always. To solve this crisis, let's take a punt, and that perhaps doesn't come off, so let's take another. He's just constantly taking punts and taking gambles on things to try and fix his problems. And actually, there probably is space for that if I think about it. On set, we've taken gambles before, Brad. We've done things to try and navigate a problem, but actually sometimes our better response might have been to just step away for 10 minutes and build that pause into the situation to let ourselves think pick the right way forward, not just to kind of grab at something.
Yeah, go on, Anne. Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, you guys are so experienced at what you do, and you've got past experience to kind of use and team that with your gut feel as well. And you probably do manage to, in inverted commas, wing it sometimes and kind of pull it out of the bag.
It is. It's a funny one because there's a moment in Uncut Gems where he lends this opal to Kevin Garnett, the guy who plays for the Boston Celtics, and there's that 2 or 3 day period where he's lent the opal to Kevin Garnett because he wants to get business from Kevin Garnett. But in the meantime, he's supposed to get the opal to Adley's auction house so they can appraise it for the auction. That the reason he's bought the opal is to put it at the auction. And I think that to me that sums up one of the more common things that we do in life is we have this long-term goal and we're going towards it, and then something comes along that's more of an immediate thing that we can do, but also then leads to a secondary long-term goal, and we have to make that decision of, do we let that extra option go, or do we take that gamble, like you said, Adam, that punt, to allow almost to them follow two paths at once. And I think that's one of the things that I find is leads to stress a hell of a lot, is we're never just going from A to B. We're going from A to B, but then we have a C, and then we have an F, and then we have a G, and then G and A then have to come back to each other, and then D's interfered with F. And what happens is we go from having a singular path to this sort of fractured web of things that we need to do, because we don't ever just have one job to do. There's always 1,000 jobs, and they always become interlinked and intermingled with each other. And I imagine that's something that probably that senior leaders kind of come into that sort of contact with that sort of thing a lot.
Yeah, I think so, especially kind of in the current climate that we're in, with majority of the world being in lockdown. Senior managers and exec teams are pulling their hair out as knowing what to do next. And also when you get kind of mixed messages from governments as to what's going to happen next, they're trying to stay ahead of the game. So, and then obviously communicating that to their teams as well. So in some respects, they're having to take a punt as to what they should be doing next. And that is stressful in itself. You put on top of that home working, managing a team of stressed people as well, and you've got some seriously stressed senior managers and executives out there who are turning to the likes of On Track International to ask for some help, and executive coaching is just one of those things that we can offer.
And what would you say would be sort of some of the key takeaways in terms of stress management? Are we sort of, because I think it's quite easy to say to people, take some time out, just do something for yourself, but I think that at the same time, once you're knee deep in the mire, it's sometimes very difficult to switch off, right? It's sometimes hard to just kind of say, I'm going to go and take a 15-minute walk, or it's different for us on a set, because especially when we're working together, Adam can kind of say, I need 10 minutes and disappear, or I can sort of say, can you just watch this while I just go and stretch my legs and get away from the situation? But if you're the only person, if the whole thing rests on you, that's probably a little bit more complicated, right?
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. But I think most people have a network of colleagues and friends and advisors that they can use. So, people that run businesses on their own will have experts around them. So use those experts and have that person that you can go to and say, look, I'm really stressed here. And, what can I do about it? And luckily, unlike the Howard character in Uncut Gems, stress tends to only happen in one area of your life at one point, luckily. So it could well be that work is kind of really stressful right now, but your home life is a little bit quieter. So you do have that release, that kind of natural release that's there.
Yeah.
And then there's this also a model called the stress curve, which visually kind of brings to life how stress can work for you as well as against you. And that's a great little kind of visual aid that I use quite a bit.
And so, with regards to the stress curve, is there is it something where there are like indicators or paths to follow, or is it very much about how does it work?
So it highlights kind of where you work best, and where you work best is where you are experiencing some stress. So that bit of stress will make you work harder. There's that saying, isn't there, that you should ask a busy person to do something for you because they'll get it done. And that's definitely the case. So stress will kind of drive you forward and make sure that you meet the deadlines that have been set. And that little bit of stress will probably leave you a little bit tired at the end of the day, but not overly tired, not the tired where you can't sleep. When you start getting into kind of the realms of exhaustion, that's when stress is kind of taking over. And once you're at that exhaustion stage, which, you know, I know a lot of people have been experiencing in lockdown, where they can't sleep and they're worried about finances, they're worried about work, they're worried about family members, they're worried about health. When they start going into the exhaustion stage, then it's a real kind of, you've kind of gone over the bump of the hill and you're heading down the other side to stuff like anxiety and panic attacks and a complete breakdown. So that, you know, we want to keep it kind of at the optimum level of stress where you've got some release, but, you know, there's a bit of pressure on you. And the flip side to that is kind of not enough stress in your life. It's the procrastination stage, and you're a little bit inactive and you're laid back and you're not actually getting stuff done because you think, oh, do you know what, I've got ages to do that.
Yeah.
So that's just as bad for kind of performance as the other end of the spectrum, where, you know, you're experiencing the anxiety.
I suppose it's an interesting point, really, because you never really think about that side of it, because I think almost stress can become a little bit like personal fitness. And if you're not used to being under stress, or you're not used to experiencing immediacy or deadlines or needs for things, when those things suddenly come along and they come out of nowhere, they can feel 10 times more powerful and 10 times more stressful than if you were constantly dealing with them, right? I imagine that because that's the thing as well, that these courses around stress and stress management, they're not just aimed at senior leaders, are they? There's that sense as well of, well, what about the everyday person and how they deal with that? Because sometimes minor promotions, or someone leaving, someone being sick, someone going on maternity, that workload then falls on someone else. And you can go from 0 to 60. And I mean, Adam, you get this, right? You get this a lot. We might have a project that comes out of nowhere that's got to be done in 2 weeks, and I'm like, Ad, I need you to do this for me. And, you know, I know you've got 600 other things, but I need you to do this because we've got to have it done in 2 weeks. And
I probably find it hard to articulate how I cope without really, really thinking deeply about it. But I think I'm struggling because I'm thinking about Uncut Gems, the movie we've watched, and what I would have done different, or what I would have advised Howard to do different. Right?
Everything.
But, well, you say that, but the thing that was, and I've sort of already alluded to it earlier, that perhaps would help is some sort of focus on an individual thing that you can control. There is a kind of, there is a need to divide up your thinking a little bit between the things you can influence and the things perhaps you can't. And that's okay that there are things you can't influence, but the things you can influence, how can you influence them? And yeah, those kind of moments where you've come with a project that needs to be done super fast, we can't influence the fact that it needs to be done. So what can we influence? How can we kind of navigate and set things up to give ourselves the space to think about and do that work? And I guess me and you sitting on a call for 20 minutes bemoaning the fact that the project needs to be done quickly doesn't help us. So there's no point. We can't influence the timeline, the reality of that project.
Yeah.
And when I was watching Uncut Gems, I so desperately wanted Howard to take control of the things he could influence. So it sounds so trivial when you see the film and see the chaos of the film, but I just wanted him to sort his home life out. The reality is the family was finished, the relationship was finished. He had a mistress who I I think his wife knew about that.
Yeah,
Unless I
Yeah,
misunderstood.
must have done.
Yeah.
Must have done.
So
Yeah.
let's get it done. Let's get it all nicely tied up. They kind of had a rough plan, but yeah, the family understood it was kind of at the end, you know, and certainly the relationship between him and his wife. They both knew they had a plan. We're going to separate after X period, after this upcoming whatever it was. Just get it done, and that sounds cold maybe, but for me, I'm like, you can control that part of your life. Bring a little bit of order there, and that's the start. And that I think is the same for me. I often try and sit back and look at what can I control, where can I put a little bit of structure to then free up some kind of mental space somewhere else.
Yeah, because that's the thing is sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, can't we? Right? And let's use Howard as an example. Okay, so he's got things he can control. So, for example, he's been cheating on his wife. He's got this mistress in Julia. So, like you say, that marriage is gone. So even just the things like when he goes to the apartment to see if she's left when he breaks up with Julia, and he has to take his son, and then he has that stressful exchange where he's trying to find a neighbour in that tenancy to kind of let him use the toilet so he can then go in the apartment and check she's not there. Just take the son into the apartment and let him wait. If the mistress is in there, she's in there. There's no secret, right? So there's that side of it. Then there are things like with Damani, the guy who he borrows the fake Rolex watches off of. I don't know, they're not Rolex, are they? But the fake watches, and he keeps giving those to people as oh, here's a $10,000 watch, let me give you that to tide me over and I'll buy that back off you. And then you think, well, why the hell would you give away watches that aren't yours, that you know someone at some point is going to want back, that you can't afford to buy? But it's kind of, he just gets into this process of trying to solve an immediate problem.
Do you know what's weird as well, Brady? He seems like he has a reasonably successful jewellery business. Right? He's busy. He's got clients. People want to come there. What's wrong with just running that business really well and just making some money?
And I think that's the beauty of the film as well, because even just the little moments like those strange little twins that keep following him round, tell him that he owes them money, or the guy that he gives the is it the Lakers or the Knicks ring that he goes and because he gets a Celtics ring, doesn't he, and that he gets off of Kevin Garnett, but he also has a Lakers ring or something. He goes and pawns that with that guy, and you think, why would you do that? And all those stupid little things, and then the whole thing underneath it all is that he owes his brother-in-law $100,000, which he's borrowed to pay for this opal. And you just think, man, like the whole thing is just, he puts himself in positions where he creates stress for himself outside of the stress that he's already under.
However, that said, that is a character right there who I think is defined by that lifestyle. You know, it would almost kill him to not be under that kind of pressure and that kind of living.
He wouldn't know any different, would he?
Right?
He really wouldn't.
But I guess it kind of made sense that is the way his life was. It was kind of dynamic and fast-paced and chaotic. And he kind of couldn't have existed any other way. It would have been a very different kind of life for him if he tried to be any different.
Yeah.
I think if I'd have been if I'd have been Howard, he so needed someone just to be honest with him and just sat him down and go, what are you doing? Let's sort it out. He needed someone to mentor him, really. That's what, at the end of the day, I thought, God, just someone be honest with him.
And I guess because that's the weird thing, because his dad could have provided that mentor role, right?
He could,
but he doesn't. He just kind of treats him as he's like not a failure, but almost this kind of albatross around his neck. He's this sort of you're a bad luck charm, Howard. Just get away. You're bad for this family and things like that. But
the bit where at the auction where he says to his dad, I want you to bid it up so that why didn't his dad say at that point, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do that,
rather than facilitate the chaos even further. I know
he did.
No, it's a strange one, but that is the thing as well, is I think that we're lucky if we're naturally surrounded by other people that allow us that take the pressure out of us a little bit. They're our sounding boards. They can provide mentoring, or we're lucky if we have that. And I guess there are people out there that don't have that, or feel they don't have that, or they maybe even see it as a sign of weakness to kind of vent to somebody else. But I think that is a real necessary evil when it comes to stress management. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. And I think that stigma around mental health and stress and anxiety is being broken down by all the good work that's being done out there by Mind and other organisations and charities. And I think people are now talking about stress and anxiety a lot more than they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. And as you say, if people don't have someone they can lean on, maybe in a work environment, then look to social media where there's lots of people who can link you up with someone who can act as a coach or a mentor. So I think it's worth doing if you feel quite isolated and alone.
I suppose there are people who are worried a little bit as well about the perception of that, in terms of, oh, I'm suffering from some form of anxiety, or I'm having a bit of a existential crisis, or the stress has kind of burnt me out, and that is a sign of weakness, or that I'm going to be tarred with that brush of, well, he or she is, or they have kind of provided an example where they have a level. There's only so much they can take, and by exposing your underside a little bit, exposing your belly, and showing yourself in such a vulnerable fashion, that you've essentially put a ceiling on your career path. And so within an organisation, people will perceive you in a certain way. But I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I mean, maybe in 20, 30 years ago and beyond, maybe that was a thing, but I can't see that now as something that necessarily is a stigma that many people go through. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm blinkered because of the world I work in, but I mean, in a creative environment, if someone blows their top, right, everyone's kind of like, well, that's the creative process. That person's having a bad day. They've screamed and shouted. That's it, But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Ange? Do you kind of see it differently, or is there a kind of sense of that change in the air? Where are we at?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a change in the air, and I think this lockdown has maybe helped with that as well. So since we've been in lockdown, the Office of National Statistics, I can never say that word, Statistics have undergone a survey, and they've said that now 2/3 of adults, those between the age of 16 and 69, are most affected by stress and anxiety.
Right.
And they can't see kind of a clear pathway to the future right now. Because of probably what's happening in lockdown. But so it's not a thing where it's a minority anymore that are dealing with stress and anxiety. As I say, 2/3 of adults are dealing with that sort of feeling. So I think it's more becoming the norm now that you might experience maybe short-term stress or anxiety that you can actually overcome and manage. And mental health isn't just about poor mental health. It's about all of your mental health, whether you've got good mental health or poor mental health. And we should be looking after that as much as we can, the physical.
Yeah. And I think we also owe each other that debt of a service in terms of keeping an eye out for each other, right? Because there are certain things that are maybe kind of deeper and darker topics that we won't necessarily go into here. I don't know if it's the platform for it, but there are stress can lead to some very catastrophic outcomes. And I was in the police for 8 years, and we lost a couple of colleagues to stress.
Wow.
And I can imagine that's something that is potentially on the rise at the moment. I don't know. Like you say, stress is becoming a more of a common occurrence, but people are also more willing to talk about it. So hopefully, with that outlet and with that awareness and with the mental health concerns that we are now showing as a society, hopefully that's a problem or a situation that can be dealt with more readily. But I do think that obviously anybody that is in a situation where they are feeling overly stressed, or where they feel like they're kind of hitting a wall and they can't see an out, they can't see a ray, like they should be speaking to somebody, that they should be opening up to people and sharing that burden, because I think that's the only way to get past that. And I know that none of us are health professionals, but I know, Ange, you've obviously had a lot of experience with dealing with these things, and a lot of research and study has gone into developing these courses and these materials, and I know that that's a sentiment that you will echo. But it's definitely something that we should definitely be aware of.
As we were chatting about, mental health and the stresses we face, and I was thinking, we have this joke constantly, Brad. I don't really watch movies, and it was a struggle for me to watch it because I don't watch films, but I watch making of documentaries, behind the scenes documentaries, and I haven't dug into this film at all yet. I have no idea about the background, the history, but I'm already thinking, I'm fascinated to know why. How and why has this come to exist, this film?
Yeah.
How was it written? Why was it written? What was the kind of thought process? Is it in some way a reflection of the times we live in? I guess it is. All movies are to some extent, but isn't it? Is there something in that this was the time for that movie to get made, to examine the kind of pressures of life, the stresses, the mental health issues, that culture maybe of taking those gambles to try and solve, always hoping for the next thing to solve your problems rather than actually addressing your problems. I just wonder if there is, it seems the right kind of film for the time we're living in, that this is kind of speaking to the world and the culture that we are part of at the moment.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, being a font of all knowledge in these things, I listened to a podcast a few months ago by A24, the company that helped produce and release this film. And it was between the Safdie brothers and one of my favourites, Paul Thomas Anderson, the director of Phantom Thread and There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights. And in it, they talked about the origins of this story, because this film took them like 10 years, 15 years to write. Yeah, they spent a long time on it. And their dad was a fishmonger. And the scene in the film where the opal comes inside that giant, I think it's a tuna, or I can't remember what fish it is now, but it comes inside, and he said that there was always this running joke that the mafia used to hide drugs inside fish, and that's how they would transport drugs in and out of New York City, and that was the genesis for the film. Basically, what would happen if you were transporting something within a fish. And I'm probably diminishing the story a little bit, and I implore you to go and look it up if you get a chance. It's the A24 podcast series, but they talk about that. And there was another thing they talked about was the fact that in the movie there were scenes where they didn't think it was stressful enough.
Really?
So they would film, once they got to post-production, they would go into ADR, which is like an additional audio recording, and they would start to get additional recording done by other cast members, by other people. So they would call Adam Sandler back in, or they'd call someone else and say, in the back, can you just say these lines? And they would just give them lines to say, and they would add that in. So then they would use audio to layer the stress, which is interesting because of what you said, Adam, about the 15 minutes and your ears being so busy. But that was kind of one of the things they did as well. So that, that's quite an interesting kind of concept of we failed to make it stressful enough, so we've got to go and do this. But I think that also speaks to our craft, is the fact that in filmmaking it's not done once it's in the can, it's not finished, and the post-production is a whole new filmmaking process.
And you could never have filmed that like that. I was thinking as I was watching, I was thinking that you could never film this like this. It would have been so quiet on set. It would have been bizarre actually to be there with waving the camera around, following Adam Sandler in silence. But that is what it would have been.
Really? Wow. I did wonder, as a complete someone who doesn't know anything about film, I did keep thinking, how the hell did they film those scenes where everybody was talking over each other? Like, if someone had got it wrong, did they have to start again? Did they have to do another take? It was,
and there probably would have been elements of that. There would have been small sections where that was definitely the case. It was like an ensemble piece, and they all had to get their part right. But then, certainly, what you see in the finished film is a mile apart, I imagine, from what was actually filmed, and they built it up. gradually.
What you're saying is then it's a bit of a editing genius almost.
Yeah. Well, the guy Arno, the brother-in-law. So I don't know if you remember, but there's a scene when he goes to watch Adam Sandler goes to watch his daughters play, and he gets a text message, and the two of the loan sharks are sitting in the behind him. So he goes out, he has a bit of a tussle with them. They chase him out of the school, and they get him in the car, and one of them's got him in a chokehold, and he's saying, "Where's my money?" And Arno's kind of saying, "Where's my money? Where's my money?" And the guy that plays him, Eric Bogosian, I can't pronounce his surname. He found it really stressful to film because he said everyone was talking and he was missing his cues, and to the point where he was like, "Can you guys calm down?" And he's screaming and shouting at everyone, and they said they had to send him off and say, "Right, go have a little walk, come back." And he said, "I can't get my cues, I can't get my audio cues, I don't know when I'm supposed to speak, I'm really stressed out." And they said, "Right, when that guy says this, then you can talk." And he kept doing it again, and in the end he just was like, "Shut up, everyone shut up." And that's the scene that's in the film where he's screaming and shouting at them, telling them to shut up, was because he genuinely couldn't figure out the scene, because he couldn't hear what was going on. And so you get those happy accidents as well, right, that happen in filmmaking. And I think that kind of sums up stress quite well. Sometimes we want to just scream and shout at people.
And sometimes it works, by the sounds of it.
Talk about art imitating life. I'm getting stressed listening to how they got stressed, making a film about a stressful situation.
Definitely.
How they didn't all come out with an ulcer or something, or with health issues.
Oh dear. But it was a great film, and the Safdie brothers did another film before that called Good Times with Robert Pattinson in, which is about another kind of like an amateur crook type situation. So, if you enjoyed that, it's definitely worth giving that one a view as well. But yeah, so Ange, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we've only scratched the surface of it, but hopefully given people an insight into what it is you've been working on and talking about, and I really appreciate it. And you're welcome to join us anytime, and we'll see if we can find you a less stressful film next time.
Yeah, maybe. But no, thank you for the opportunity. I did, in a strange way, enjoy it.
Good.
This is the one and only kind of regular format point of our show, where we get the Brad Williams score out of 5 stars for the movie.
Do you know what? I'm not going to go full on 5, but I'm going to go 4.5.
Ooh.
4.5. Okay.
Because I think a good film isn't just a film that you enjoy. A good film is a film that gives you something to talk about, gives you something to think about. It stays with you. And I think that Uncut Gems is one of those films where you'd be hard-pressed to watch it and write it off. This is the sort of film that's going to follow you around for days. You're going to talk to people about it. It's going to stick in your mind. It's a really well-made film. I think the craft on show is spectacular. Yes, it's a bit pretentious in places, but sometimes art's allowed to be pretentious. And I just think Adam Sandler is just unreal. He's a force of nature in that film. And so for me, I would say if you haven't seen it, watch it. If you've watched it, watch it again, because I've seen it 4 times now and I find something different every time to enjoy about it. So, yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. So which puts that at the top of our leaderboard, doesn't it? It's Uncut Gems, Contagion, and then down there at the bottom is Enter the Dragon. That's where we're at so far. But yeah, so Adam, any closing thoughts or sentiments from you on Stress or Uncut Gems?
I don't know whether to thank you or bemoan the fact that you made me watch that movie, because it's had 2 different kind of impacts on me. But no, it's a stunning piece of filmmaking, and like I said right at the start, it's an experience, and I don't know that there's that many movies you would call an experience, a physical experience and an emotional experience. They might be a great story, they might be action-packed, all these other things. They might pose some interesting questions that you go away thinking about, but to me this was an experience that has hit me for sure, almost physically as much as emotionally.
Definitely. And if you watch the film and you think, wow, this is just like my life, then you need to pick up the phone and speak to Angela, because she's got some things to talk to you about.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both very much, and thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.